Rain jackets are supposed to be in team colours, but Lance Armstrong was in the international uniform of the world-class celebrity, black. Back at the team car briefly, dictating a tweet to Johan Brunel, but mostly comfortably in the lead group. While for the second day running, a rider attacked from a breakaway group to score a solo win.
And there it is, high in the sky, just 5 kilometres to go for Heinrich Hausler. The gap has shot up on the peloton from about 6.5 to 7 minutes 8 seconds. He's still pulling away. They've shut down for the day. This man is set to enjoy his finest day as a cyclist.
Well, theoretically, when he gets to the finishing line, Phil, the main field should just be coming up to that 5 kilometre banner, because at the speed that he is riding, he should cover 5 kilometres in about 7 minutes. He still keeps putting his head down there, keeping the pressure on. He's riding at about 45 kilometres now. A little casual check there at the time check, and he's going to say, thank you very much, I'll take that.
Reading all that when you're under pressure takes a bit of time, but he's studied it, he's seen the time gaps, he knows now. Nobody's crossing the big void to his back wheel today. This rain has created an ocean between him and the rest of the race. Terrific show of strength and a great tactic today by Cervelo, making sure a man got in that breakaway and gambled that if it didn't work on the big climb by the heads, they would all then decide to turn off and wait for the Alps, and it's worked.
Well, the race computer is telling me, Phil, that this man here is at 4 minutes and 12 seconds, and in fact about 15 to 20 seconds behind him is Sylvain Chavanel. So Chavanel may well be recovering on the flatter part of the course, even though he is losing big time to Heinrich Hausler.
That would be equally amazing. Maybe our cameras will seek him out. We've got 3 cameras here and we can't use them over 4 riders. Simple as that.
Well, there is the yellow jersey, all of the raincoats off now, sitting behind 3 of his teammates who've been mustered up to the front end of the main field to do the pacemaking. It was a very precarious day for him this afternoon. He must have wondered when the big teams like Saxo Bank and Astana came to the front end of the main field, was it going to be the big attack on the first hors d'oeuvre of the mountains? But it wasn't a serious attack by anybody. I think it was just a test to see whether or not Rinaldo Nocentini could resist.
So this will be the first German victory of the Tour de France today, and Hausler gets there. Although, as I say, he's been brought up in the town of Inverness in New South Wales, so the Aussies might claim a little bit of the victory as well. The rain still comes down, and Heinrich Hausler cuts his trail through it here. He's just past 3 kilometres to go, and the gap continues to ascend. 7 minutes 60, and as I speak, it's dropped back 1 second. But that's enough. He's got it now.
Well, time is not really important for a guy like Heinrich Hausler, Phil, because he started the day 55 minutes behind Rinaldo Nocentini in the overall classification. All he's concerned about is getting his wheel across the line in first place. But he can't wait for this race to finish now. He's got himself stripped down. The weather is, strangely enough, just starting to smile on him now. We've left most of the bad weather completely behind us as we now start to get into the outskirts of Colmar. Around that corner, he won't take any risks now. He knows he's got 4 minutes to play with over Ahmed Chiruka, the second-place rider on the road. About 4.5 minutes over Sylvain Chavanel. 7.25 minutes over the main field. Here is Sylvain Chavanel, and he's about to get picked up here by Bryce Felu, and he's just going to sit up and wait for the rider from France to catch up with him and hope that he can pilot him to the finish, because Sylvain Chavanel has gone through all kinds of problems this afternoon, probably due to the fact that he didn't keep himself topped up with energy and eat enough on a very cold day through the mountains. 2 kilometres to go now, to go for upside down world of Heinrich Hausler. This is a bit of excitement at the back end of the main field, and in fact this is David Miller, and it looks to me as if he's pacing back Bradley Wiggins, who may well have had a problem.
So it's a big peloton, Paul. Mark Cavendish, the sprinter, isn't here. He'll come in what we call the auto bus. I reckon he's probably about 10 or 15 minutes back, but he'll be okay. Oh, look at the face here. This guy is seeing 15 men in front of him right now.
Well, just looking, he hasn't, I think he's not even been able to follow the wheel of Bryce Felu. He's completely and utterly blown. This can happen, Phil.
I think the point you made was right. He hasn't eaten.
No, and it can easily happen when you're in a breakaway situation in the mountains, and it's much more difficult to remember to eat, because you're thinking about putting pressure on, you're thinking about pedaling, you're thinking about staying off the front end of the main field. It is a serious professional error that sometimes even the best of professional bike riders can make, and I think this afternoon that is what Sylvain Chavanel has done. He may well not even survive to the finish. He could even get picked up, Phil, by the main peloton.
he could, because once you hit the wall, the body sugars are gone and you can't see anything. Steady as you go now. There's no need to take risks, Heinrich, and he hasn't, as he swings in looking for the 1 kilometre to go. Banner now. Third Tour de France, first stage victory. It's going to come on the east of France, as close as he could be to Germany, in fact, because tomorrow we go down much closer to Italy. As he lines up, there's a massive crowd here in Colmar. He's under that 1 kilometre to go, and now he's just going to enjoy the noise of the crowd in his ears here. It's been a wonderful attack, and he's got rid of everybody. I thought he'd made a mistake getting rid of Sylvain Chavanel on the way down, but he knew how he felt, and he must have known how Chavanel felt.
Yes, well, he obviously got the feeling that Chavanel was not going well on the first category climb, because theoretically Chavanel should have been the much stronger rider on the uphill parts of the course. He saw that and he took advantage of it on the descent, and he flew down that descent to build up his lead over the Frenchman. And although the Frenchman held it at 15 seconds for a while, all of a sudden the lights went out. It's a long finishing straight here, Phil. It's almost 1 kilometre straight up to the finish line in Colmar. All he has to do now is just raise his hands in glory and enjoyment. What a great ride.
He was born in Inverell, a small town inland in New South Wales, inland from Sydney. That's where he learned to speak fluent English. He now lives in Germany because he was born to German parents. We know that this town, Inverell, will be cheering madly for him tonight. For their time, it's in the middle of the night. It doesn't matter to this man because he's enjoying every moment of it. Heinrich Hausler, 25 years of age, comes home to his first win at the third Tour de France he's attempted, and he's done it so well through the mountains of the Vosges and the Alsace, and he's overcome here with emotion.
Yeah, good ride, man. I tell you, that really is very special, Phil.
Terrific as he hits the line. I'm not surprised. A very popular guy. He's had a great season. That, by the way, is his 5th win of his season and the 14th win of his career.
Jens Voigt followed him out the back of the break too because of a puncture, and with no team car in between the break and the peloton, he had to make do with a wheel change from the neutral service vehicle, which he wasn't too happy about.
Allez, à côté de moi!
And he was even less happy to have a camera bike on hand to record it all.
Can you just leave me alone now? I'm really unhappy with that, okay? Can you just leave me alone here?
Bad luck for Jens. He eventually acknowledged the inevitable and got swallowed up by the main field. Now, Christophe Moreau lives in this part of France, and in accordance with Tour tradition, he was allowed to ride away at the front so that he could stop and say hello to his wife and daughter. Then the chase was back on, or rather lack of chase, because the break had a very particular makeup. There were sprinters in it, men like Daniele Benatti of Liquigas and Gerald Cholik of Milram, so their teams wouldn't cooperate with the chase. And Colombia also had George Hincapie in it. He probably joined it just to keep an eye on it, but since he was the highest placed rider in there, 5 minutes 25 down in the classification, he suddenly found himself a threat to take the yellow jersey by default. Perhaps realising that, Astana, one of the few teams without a rider in the break, decided they'd better chase to keep the gap to manageable proportions.
Well, there's a move now coming from Christophe Lemervel. He's also now seen this little climb on the outskirts of Besançon as a possibility, and Hincapie is not letting anybody go clear this afternoon. Hincapie now takes up the chase, and I wonder if that's to think whether or not he can get himself a stage victory. Hincapie crosses the gap to the Frenchman quite easily.
6 minutes and 26 seconds. The two riders on the attack would be first and second overall if that was the gap tonight, and George Hincapie and Christophe know that. So they're going to work together here. They're not working for a stage when they are working just to win time. They're being joined by Daniele Benatti, and the rest may get back on this occasion. There goes another one, and it looks like it's Nicholas Roach who's gone. Now that's an interesting move because his team are trying to catch up.
And I'm pretty sure that Dad Stephen Roach is probably on the edge of his seat now, looking at his son going off the front end of a stage of the Tour de France.
So the Roach dynasty continues. Stephen himself started his tour in 1983, won it in 1987, and on the way he picked up 3 stage wins, and it would be lovely if his son managed to make one in Besançon.
Well, Benatti has nailed him back, and he dug very deep there to pull it all back together. He knows that he's got a great chance of victory. Watch out though for the man sitting at the back there from Team Milram, Gerard Cholik. He's got a good chance also if they stay together, but you can see these attacks are because not a lot of riders are very confident. Maskant.
6:23. It actually Ivanov's gone again, and this is absolutely the tactic of the Russian rider. He rides alone whenever he gets a chance. There's the mistake. They're all watching. He's waited till they've had a little flurry of attacks. Now they're all out of breath. He's launched an incredible attack here, and they're all hesitating. Sergei Ivanov is free to fly right now. Well, we are in the streets of Besançon now, remember, because we go through the town centre. Listen to the crowd here. A Saturday in this city, cheering the Tour de France all the way across the city centre. This is a beautiful city. There's the clock on the right. It's famous for the clocks made here in France. And the time, was it the right time, Paul?
It was spot on.
Well, you wouldn't expect it to be anything else here. And look at the whole population's turned out. And they're being treated to a grandstand finale performance by the 12 riders in the breakaway. The Russian trying to run away with it. 21 seconds. The chasers are coming. And still at 6:12, the breakaway. But remember, that clock is counting on Sergei Ivanov. So Hincapie has got to keep chasing.
Well, Hincapie has to keep chasing. Halfway across the gap there is Albert Timmer of the small skill Shimano squad. And again, the accelerations, Phil, coming thick and fast. This time it comes from the rider from Cofidis, and that is Sebastian Mina. They're relayed by Daniel Rigi of Team Lampre. They're throwing caution to the wind here this afternoon, but if they don't get themselves organised, this man is going to run away with the show. He won't have the accelerations and decelerations of the group behind him. He will get locked into 47, 48 kilometres an hour and try to build on his advantage. He's still hovering at around about 20 seconds over the chasers. Royalston has linked up there, Phil, with the other rider, Albert Timmer, and they are halfway across the gap.
A little bit of frustrating times here for George because they're all jumping away from him and he can't really stay with them at the moment. He's going to have to look for a different move. He's desperately close to keeping this yellow jersey or getting it. Nudged the second there, 6:28, but that is for the leader now.
Well, he has 18 seconds advantage over those two chasers, Hayden Rolston and Albert Timmer, and around about 30 going back to the rest of the group with George Hincapie and, of course, with the riders like Daniele Bernati, Nicolas Roche and Gerard Cholik. They are starting to get themselves organised again.
The one-on-one, they've got two lines going anyway, but the sprinters are being left, and that's what it is normally happens. 6:35 to the peloton, take off 22 seconds. You've got 6:12 is the gap. That's still good enough for a yellow jersey for George Hincapie, but remember, the peloton are more likely to pick up speed as they too will come into Besançon.
These two riders have got themselves part way across the gap, but then all of a sudden they seem to hit the wall. They couldn't go any faster. They're only 10 seconds ahead of the chasing group now of 9 men.
Well, they certainly don't look as fluid as Sergei Ivanov. Hayden Wilson having to do some strong turns now. Timmer, I think, is right on his limit. He's a young, well, they're both first-timers in the Tour de France, but Rolston a little bit the stronger of the two, I think. That chase, though, is coming in, and it's liquid gas because Bernati's the sprinter trying to get up here. If the organisers arrange this tour for a hard final week and to bring a close finish, they've got it, that's for sure. 6:33 the gap, 3 kilometres now. Sergei Ivanov, I don't think, can be caught. These two boys are absolutely stuck in no man's land. That pack behind needs to reorganise quickly. Well, look at the crowds here. We turn right now as we start to go in towards the last 2 kilometres. What we've got to remember is George really should just go to the front and drive and forget what position he finishes.
Well, these two chasers still locked in at 25 seconds behind them. George Hincapie and the rest of the group of 9 riders. Hincapie hoping to try and survive. They've got a little bit of organisation still coming. It's Martin Maskant, the Dutchman on Team Garmin Slipstream, is whipping up the pacemaking at the front end of the main field. It's 38 seconds back to this group. 6:32 still back to the main field and the yellow jersey.
What it means is George is still in yellow, but the bunch are going to accelerate as they come into town. Talking of town, that's exactly where they are now. And these are the Garmin teammates driving on here. The chase has reorganised a little bit there, but George Hincapie's no choice. He's got to drive. He's going to get no help from anybody now. It's a matter of who wins the day, who gets the prize money. And if George Hincapie gets a yellow jersey, it's a big if right now, because the peloton will go quickly over these last 5 kilometres.
They will whip it up in the main field, Phil, because they've got to get their sprinters to the front, because even though the sprinters are only going for 12th position on the stage, there are still big points available. 13 points for 13th place, down to 1 point for 25th place. That is the third group on the road, led by Hincapie. Hincapie's not worried about second or third on a stage like this afternoon. He's more concerned about second seconds, about the seconds that might bring him the yellow jersey for the second time in his career, as Sergei Ivanov goes inside of 1 kilometre to go, and still, Phil, he has never ever looked back over his shoulders to see if the others are coming back to him.
He is 900 metres from the line now. He's looking for his 39th win of his career. He's had 3 wins this year. This will go down as one of his best, as it will go alongside the Amstel Gold Race, which was in April this year. And Katusha is a new team here. They've had little success without Robin McEwen in the Tour de France, but now it looks as though Sergei is going to deliver the goods. His face a picture of pain here, but it soon will be one of joy. We've had a counter-attack from the pack, and it's got to go. It looks like Roach may have gone again here. And Roach is going to reach these 2 riders. He's going to come up behind Hayden Royalston. A little flick at the wrist there. Hayden has tried to raise it. Well, this is a brave, even if it is a very cheeky move from Nicholas Roach. His mouth wide open, but there's a big reaction from the field here.
Well, they're dragging themselves back, but they're not going to see this man again, as he's inside of the last 300 or 400 metres, and he's just pumping it all the way up to the finishing line. But that attack by Roach may well give a couple of seconds to Hincapie in the group behind.
As the cars turn off, Sergei Ivanov is about to give a victory salute now. We expected him to make his move. He did exactly that. He wins the stage for Russia and for Katusha, and he's stolen the show. A long breakaway today. That's the stage winner. But who is the leader tonight? Now, Nicholas Roach beginning to fade. He's still got Hayden Royalston digging deep here for a 3rd place. But it looks as though Nicholas Roach is going to get the performance of his life. They're coming very close on him. Remember that the clock will start for yellow and George. An excellent 2nd place by Roach. I think Mascant probably just beat Roulston on the line. They're not sure.
Well,
the clock is going.
We have to start the clock now. This is the man who's taken the stage glory, Phil, but now we have to wait for 5 minutes and 25 seconds from when Nicholas Roach crossed the line to see whether or not the main field are going to come in with the yellow jersey. It is going to be very close for George Hincapie here this afternoon.
So a long day's ride followed by a short, anxious wait for George Hincapie behind the podium, but not knowing whether he'd be stepping out onto it to take the yellow jersey until the main field crossed the line.
There is the Flamme Rouge. 1 minute and 10 seconds, 1 minute and 7 seconds is what they need. What may go in George Hincapie's favour is it's slightly uphill, so they won't be doing 60 kilometres now. They're probably going to do 55.
We could be talking 5 seconds one way or the other for yellow tonight. This is an incredible Tour de France this year. As they now line up, Michael Rogers is trying to deliver Tony Martin, followed by Mark Renshaw, followed by the missile himself, and locked into the back of the missile is the green jersey of Thor Hushoff. They're going to start the sprint. Tony Martin is trying to delay it as much as possible, waiting for the run from Leonardo Duque. Samuel Dumoulin is the man who's trying to get up in red. The others are coming out from the left here now. They're trying to give a lead out to Hushoff, and remember that Hushoff must finish 6 places behind, and that's not going to happen. As now Renshaw says, "Where are you, Mark?" He looks both sides. Now he goes. Now Cab is going to have to break off the wheel here of Mark Renshaw, and right on the inside is the green jersey of Hushoff, and that should be close enough to keep it tonight. Now he's waiting for him to go very close on the line. I think genuinely there, the green jersey had a little genuine complaint there by the way the Colombian boys delivered that sprint to the line.
My calculation, Phil, is in fact George Hincapie is going to miss out on the yellow jersey by probably 3 seconds. That was very close and sad for Hincapie, but it was his teammates there had to lead the charge to the line. This is an acceleration from the front group. Now that is Spilak, Simon Spilak, a rider from the Czech Republic and from Team Lamprecht.
So Spilak has gone, Paul, at 2:45. I don't know where he went. The camera's just switching here, but he's gone.
Well, I think this is an amazing story, Phil. When you think the other day he finished dead plumb last on the stage, 45 minutes behind the winner. He should have been eliminated. The judges reversed the decision because of the difficulties had out on the race route. And here he is at the front of the stage.
Well, good luck to him. Let's see what he can do. Because he is not a marked rider, the breakaway, maybe he's just continuing to keep the rhythm. At 2:38, they might also feel that it's not going to work. There was the man who was in yellow, just taking a drink from his team car, Astalosa. 21 kilometres to go. The climb, it doesn't start, I keep telling you, 9 kilometres to go, but it is steadily uphill from now on.
Absolutely. There is no flat between now and the actual start proper of the climb, the measured length of the climb. This is a long valley road and making its way up into the foothills and the start of the climb up to Verbier. Spilak has got himself around about a 15-second advantage as he has opened up over the group of 9 riders with him. 2 minutes and 29 seconds back to the main field, who are charging down this valley road. Spilak looking over his shoulder. I don't think it was really an attack, but much more of an acceleration that took him off the front end of the group. But behind it's Jose Ivan Gutierrez, who is whipping up the pace, trying to pull this rider back into the fold. Well, he's got himself a bit of an advantage. That is Jose Ivan Gutierrez. He's being relayed there just by Fabian Cancellara, Jürgen van der Broek on the far side. These riders will continue to work together to try and pull back that lone leader, Spilak. But that was a big surprise, I think, for all of them. One out, just having a little bit of a chat. There is Fabian Cancellara wondering what he should do. Should he try and jump across the gap, or should he keep working in this group until they get to the foot of the climb? And he will know the foot of the climb because he will have participated last year in the Tour of Switzerland. 20 kilometers to go now for this lone leader, Simon Spilak, a Czech rider from Team Lampre. He's got himself about a 15-second advantage over the front end of the main field. And looking back, I would say it's a little bit more than 15 seconds there. And in fact, this group here has all of a sudden turned off the pacemaking. 20 seconds it is as he goes under that point. At the back, number 61, Mikel Astrolosa. He was the highest placed rider in this leading group, looking for 3 minutes and 2 seconds at the start of the day. But here is where the action is. This is where we're going to see the real fireworks start once we get to the foothills, the final foothills of this climb of the day. 19 kilometers, that's 10 kilometers away from the start of the climb proper. You can see how long that line of riders is, and this is the damage that they're doing at the back end of the main field. Thomas Vöckler sitting at the back, number 141, a little bit further forward in front of him. I just noticed another rider who's slipping back there from Team High Road, and that in fact was what would look like Mick Rogers. That would be a bit of a surprise.
Well, he was riding very well, Mick. He's lost a lot of time overall. He's had a couple of bad crashes, but he has always been the team player for his team as he ties. And this is still Simon Spilak out in front here. He's only won 2 races in his life, and smaller races, but even so, he's a man that will not be drawing the attention of the race just yet. There's the Wasp. Don't quite know the significance of it, but we're about to sting somebody as we start the climb today. Liquigas working with Astana now, 2:38 the gap, based on the leader all of the time. So they're only 2 minutes behind those 9 chasers right now. Looking at the hard-working faces here of Team Liquigas, they are giving 100% of their energy. The workmen on Liquigas, and they've got 3 likely people they can launch onto the climb.
Well, Kreuziger, Phil, finished 3rd on this stage when the Tour of Switzerland finished here in 2008, and that was on his way to winning that race overall, so he will feel fairly confident. Whenever you've had a performance in the past in a particular town or on a particular mountain, you've got that little added motivation of knowing that you can ride successfully on it, and he's probably asked the team to come forward and do that pacemaking. 20 kilometers to go, 2.5 minutes.
Ooh, 20 kilometers to go now, so that's about 10 kilometers before life begins to go straight up. That is 18 kilometers for the leader, so the 2 kilometer spread between Simon Spilak and the bunch here, with 9 riders in between, riding on about just 2 minutes. Garmin Slipstream have moved all of their men up as well in the orange now. And Garmin Slipstream have 2 big candidates here in Christian van der Velde and Bradley Wiggins.
Well, you can see a lot of teams now, Phil, getting together, getting themselves organised for the last launch at the early slopes of this climb, because they know that they want to have their climbers in the first 10 or 15 places. If you start the climb at the back end of the pack, you're starting with quite possibly a 30 to 40 second deficit, and you've got to make that up, usually through the confusion of other riders getting dropped.
Well, you can see just how quick that peloton is going right now. This is going to be a first big showdown in the Alps this year. We didn't get the big showdown we expected in the Pyrenees because they were waiting for this final week, and it's day one today.
2.5 minutes to the peloton, and they're only 2 minutes, in fact less than 2 minutes behind the remnants of that 10-man breakaway. Now just 9 riders chasing a lone leader, Simon Spilak of the Czech Republic, and he is off the front end of the group by around about 40 seconds. All that we know about Spilak is that he's been a professional since 2005. He's won 2 small races in his career. One of those was a race in France, the Grand Prix of the Côte Picarde. That's up in the north of France, over towards the English Channel. Back of the pack, not trying to see if there are any of the leaders missing out there. I noticed Thomas Voeckler. He's obviously not going to try anything this afternoon. It's not really his kind of a finish. He will hope to try and get himself in a breakaway on a different kind of stage. Up the road now, 16 kilometres to go for Simon Spilak. He is dreaming of victory in the Tour de France this afternoon. He's got to try and build himself and conserve his advantage here if he wants to win.
5th place overall in the Tour of Slovakia, Czechoslovakia, or that's now Slovakia is its own country. It used to be called the Okolo Slovenska. 16.6 kilometres to the finish now, but we've got the last 9 uphill, 2:34 the gap. It's only 2 minutes to the 9 remaining boys in that breakaway, and it's Liquigas who have really taken this race by the scruff of the neck.
Well, they're obviously thinking of launching an attack, and they will be looking at the mileometer at the top there. 16.5 kilometres to go, Phil. That is now not very much more than 6-7 kilometres to go to the start of the climb. And as soon as they take the left-hand turn onto the slopes of the climb, bang, it goes up about 3 or 4% more than it is here.
Looks like they were sending reinforcements up there from Liquigas. Here he comes on the right. All of the contenders that matter, of course, are in this big bunch. There are a couple of riders off the back, including Kenny Van Hummel, and it could be curtains for them today because they're a long way back. I saw Silence Lotto bringing Cadel Evans into the fray as well.
All of the early climbs now are behind the riders. 4 third category climbs as an hors d'oeuvre. Then the second category climb of the Col de Mose. Now it's all about this final climb of the day. We've got the valley road behind us. Now all these riders are waiting for as they go along this long false flat into the town of Villette, is waiting to set themselves up and set up the contenders for the big climb of the day. Armstrong in the dark hat there for Livestrong, sitting behind his teammate Alberto Contador. Alberto Contador, just in front of Armstrong there, has won every one of the last 3 Grand Tours that he's participated in. He won the Tour de France in 2007, came back to participate and win the Giro d'Italia in 2008. His team was not selected for the Tour de France last year, so he couldn't defend his title. So he went to the Tour of Spain at the end of the year and he won that as well. Armstrong was successful in the Tour de France from 1999 to 2005. 7 years in a row he was the victor in this race in the month of July. Now in his comeback, the question mark is, can he rival the young bucks on the slopes of this very difficult climb? Spilak, this young rider here, has opened up an almost 1 minute gap over the group of 9 riders that he was in, but he's not yet got himself to the start of the climb.
We are 15 kilometres now from the summit as we're looking at Simon Spilak, the leader here. 15 kilometres, the last 9 are all uphill. It looks as though these boys are being caught. 2 minutes 21, here is the gap, and it looks as though the way these boys are going, Paul, they are throwing the towel in here. Just Simon Spilak up the road.
Well, I'm a bit surprised, Phil, because they were all working extremely well together, and now all of a sudden nobody wants to ride. And it just surprises me completely and utterly, just because one guy has jumped off the front of the main pack, why they can't get themselves organised and try and survive. And I'm sure it's quite frustrating to the man in the orange jersey there wearing number 61, Mikel Astrolosa, because a few moments ago he was looking at possibly tickling the yellow jersey. Now he may well not even get to the foot of the climb at the head of the race.
Well, they are going on the 15 kilometres to go. Spilak has gone under this gap and is moving clear by around about 1 minute at that 15 kilometres from this group. The peloton are about 1.25 minutes behind this group at the moment. Looks as though they might be getting themselves a little bit organised as we've gone back up to the leader. This is Simon Spillik, who is now making his route. The man who was officially eliminated from the race. He finished 45 minutes behind the other day, but the judges took the unusual decision to let him back in. They said that he was hampered by cars being allowed onto the route. He was so far behind. They took a very unusual view, I must say, but he's back and he's now rewarding them with a chance of a win here. It's a slim chance, but it's a chance.
Well, it's nice that he's been able to pay back the referees by getting himself into the breakaway that's dominated today's stage and then riding off the front end of the group and leading by a minute. Liquigas, Phil, have done an awful lot of work, but I tell you what, you get an idea of how hard this race is when your heart rate starts to climb up like Brian Van Borg's to just inside of 170 beats a minute. You know that you're starting to get right onto the edge of the saddle, and the wattage is creeping up to the 400 watts mark, and that is very, very hard.
And of course, Van Borg is among the leaders here. He's on the Liquigas team, and he's having to put his heart and soul into the chase right now. 2 minutes 18 seconds the spread, and Cancellara here on the left red jersey, David Moncoutier, Pierrick Fedrigo in the blue, and Astolosa himself, because they're messing about, is trying to ride off the front, and now that's caused a flurry of action.
Well, he obviously was frustrated by the fact that nobody was prepared to do the pacemaking and work together in this group, and Ryder Hezjedal has seen that and said, well, if you guys don't want to work, I'm going across the gap as well. And Jurgen van den Broek says, me too.
Well, we'll see if this causes the reaction that they want to do and cut back in, because it seems a shame to throw it all to the wind now before they've actually started the climb, which is closing in. We're 4 kilometres from the town that takes us right onto the climb. This is Astolosa now. Once he was in yellow, now he's out of it. Now he could do with the stage win for Euskaltel Euskadi.
They are scrambling, trying to get to the wheel here of Mikel Astolosa. Looks like it's Jurgen van den Broek trying to get himself across the gap. Switching across the road there still. Ryder Hezjedal is trying to get onto the wheel of the Belgian. Hezjedal looks over his shoulder to see what sort of damage is being done, but Jurgen van den Broek, I think, is just about to make the junction. It's 2 minutes and 16 seconds is the difference between Spilak at the front of the race and this peloton here now. Different team has come to the front, and in fact it's going to be Team Milram setting the pacemaking. They're trying to set something up for Marcus Foten or Linus Gerdeman. It's Gerdeman sitting in third position there. Dave Zabriskie over on the left-hand side. He is trying to pace his two men, Christian van der Velde and Bradley Wiggins, to be in the front positions once they start this final climb of the day.
Team Milram, that's unexpected perhaps a little bit, but they might be working here for Linus Gerdeman to see what he can do. And what's happened to all the Liquigas boys now, Paul? They completely disappeared.
Well, they did the job that they wanted to. They wanted to bring that gap down as much as possible to give their men a chance to leap out of the pack and vie for the stage victory at the end of the day. Quite a crowd turned out to watch the Tour de France in Switzerland.
They built the grandstands here because we're getting desperately close now to the turn up into the mountain. You could just see Verbier. Actually, we're right up on the mountain there as the riders come up the valley. There's Martin Brun on the right-hand side of the road. He was the race referee that decided to relegate Mark Cavendish yesterday to the back of the field for apparently an irregular movement in the sprint. These are the leaders now of the Tour, and they're all in this group, and the first four separated by 8 seconds. We've never had such a close approach to the last week of the Tour de France. 4 men separated by 8 seconds.
Well, Phil, just looking down that line, you can see the damage that's being done. This is the group of the sprinters now starting to get tailed off. Torhush of Tyler Farah is right in there. Going further back as well, Muriev for the Team Astana. He's done his job of work here this afternoon. Bernard Eisel, the Austrian rider on Columbia HTC. This is the group of riders who today will just have to survive on the slopes of the climb.
Well, they should. They've got plenty of time. There is Mark Cavendish. He knew this would come. He's done it voluntarily. They'll just ride up together, lose time, yes, but they won't lose enough to be eliminated. There is no problems there. Daniela Bernati, the other sprinter, was in there as well for Liquigas. So we're moving across the gap now. These riders are coming off slowly but surely. Well, the pressure's gone on before we've even got to the climb.
No, the climb doesn't even start, Phil, for another probably 3 or 4 kilometres. Number 21 in the turquoise jersey there, Alberto Contador. Sitting behind him with the black helmet on is Lance Armstrong. It's a different team on the front, but that could all very much change in the next couple of kilometres when we take that left-hand turn onto the early slopes of the climb. But I have to say that young man, Simon Spilak, is doing a phenomenal performance.
Well, Christian Nies has started to take pace at the front now, and this is interesting. Rabobank have moved right up to the front as well. I wonder if Denny Menchoff is feeling good today.
Well, he needs to do something special. He's a long way down in the overall classification. There is Mikel Astrolosa and Jürgen van den Broek. They're at 42 seconds. The rest of the group is at 55 seconds and 150 back to the main field.
Well, Jürgen van den Broek has gone up alongside Astrolosa. They're trying to find out the location of Simon Spilak. He's on his own up the road. They had to break away because the group was getting very disjointed. Here is the saddle of Spilak as we move up the road to find him. He is just nonplussed and getting on with it here and hoping that things go his way. A minute 50 the spread and still coming down. The peloton, I'm afraid, are coming back. At least some of them are.
Well, some of them are, yes, and here we're looking at these two riders trying to get across the gap to Simon Spilak. This is where the big race is going to take place, though, in the main field. It's moving up the outside there. There's a rider from Columbia, HTC, it's Mick Rogers, in fact, trying to move his man Tony Martin into an ideal position. Pelazzotti in the polka dot jersey, right at the front end there. His teammates have done a lot of work to reduce that gap, maybe to give him the chance of a victory. 10 kilometres to go now for Simon Spilak at the front of the race. These now are the chasers at around about 40 seconds. Mikel Astrolosa, Fabian Cancellara came across the gap, but Jürgen van den Broek is the other rider in there too. And the fourth rider to come across will be Perik Federigo of B-Box Bouygues Telecom. Looking back, they've actually picked up the pace quite an amount here, and they are now starting to eat into this man's advantage. But behind them, a group of around about 30 or 40 riders left in the main field are also starting to approach these men. 10 kilometres to go at 40 seconds behind the lone leader, Simon Spilak. Cancellara pushing onto the shoulders there of Jürgen van den Broek, saying, "You go through, mate. I'm under a bit of pressure here." But they know how strong Cancellara can be over the final few kilometres of a race like this. The champion of Switzerland, hoping that he's going to survive here this afternoon, but somehow I think we're going to be treated to a battle royale on the slopes of this ski resort to Verbier. So at 10 kilometres to go, this is what the race looks like. Spilak leading that second group there by 41 seconds. A little bit further back, you've got a group of 5 riders at around about 55 seconds. And then the main field at 1 minute and 40 being led here by Team Milram.
Open mouth, tremendous work being done here by Fabian Weckmann as he tries now, the former champion of Germany for the past 2 years, in fact. Drives on, being swamped by Astana, and now the drive is on by Saxo Bank as well. They all want to hit this together. This is the approach now. This is the town. Just over the hill there, there's the start of the cable cars. 9 minutes by cable car. It's going to take about 25 minutes by bike.
It's going to take them a lot longer than the cable car. The left-hand bend is not too far away from here, Phil, as Simon Spilak knows that the main field will be charging up behind him. And I did notice that Team Saxo Bank were very attentive at the front end of that pack.
They're trying to launch Andy Schleck into a move today. Schleck needs to make up a little bit of time. Minute 49 down. There's the start, 8.7 kilometres. First man on is Simon Spilak. He was in the breakaway all day. He's got to be tired. These are the remnants of the breakaway. They're going to make the left turn next, but they're holding on at the moment. Ryder Hagedal is the rider at the back.
He's just managed to come across the gap to join that group of 4 riders who are 40 seconds behind the lone leader here. Ryder Hagedal must have turned himself inside out to get across that gap, but there'll be a few riders turning themselves inside out when they take this left-hand bend, because this is where the 8.7 kilometre ascent begins in earnest.
Yes, there we are. Now we're on it. Look at the people here of Switzerland and a number of other countries watching the riders here. Pierrick Fedrigo is in the light blue. Here comes the main field now, and it's going to be a crush at the front because the big contenders will want to make sure they are at the front of the pack.
Well, it's Garmin Slipstream seem to have got the control of the front end of the main field. They're trying to get their men, Christian van der Velde and, of course, Bradley Wiggins around the corner in first place, catching the remnants of the breakaway. This is David Miller on the front. Behind him, I'm looking to see if it is Bradley Wiggins. It is Wiggins, followed by Christian van der Velde.
Well, they've had a perfect start to the climb here. The Team Garmin Slipstream. David Miller looks over. That's his job done, as Bradley Wiggins is right there. Jens Voigt is there as well. So Carlos Sastre is also here, and Christian van der Velde. This is a race for the top now.
They are trying to set this up, Phil, for a big acceleration for the climbers, and there are so many climbers here with a chance of going out on the front. Big Jens Voigt from Germany hammering on those pedals. He's not worried about where anybody else is up in front of this race. He's trying to make it as tough as possible. Not far away there is Cadel Evans, sitting in about 7th or 8th position, but he's behind a long line of riders from Astana.
Big Jens Voigt here, banging out the rhythm on the front here now. He's trying to pave a way here for the Schleck brothers, perhaps, mainly for Andy. Watch out, though. Carlos Sastre is not too far down the line here. This is the back of the field now. The world champion, Alessandro Ballan, is going off the back. The polka dot jersey of Franco Pelazzotti is going off the back. So the Liquigas move must be for either Kreuziger or Nibali that we saw earlier on.
Absolutely, those riders know this climb. They're great climbers. Now you can see there was Andy Schleck a little bit further forward. These riders now are just hanging on to their shirt sleeves. They're trying to get rid of that man there in the yellow jersey. He's led this race since we left the Pyrenees behind. It seems like almost an eternity.
We have started the climb. We're looking at Jens Voigt setting up the pace here to try and launch Andy Schleck into an attack. Bradley Wiggins is riding like two men here. He's in the orange, the British rider. We never considered him as a climber. He's a track cyclist, and he's in a perfect position now.
Did you see the way Jens Voigt just swung off there? He'd done his job for 1.5 kilometres to make it extremely tough for everybody. He was trying to asphyxiate all of the opposition to try and set something up for his man Andy Schleck. These are the riders at the back end of the pack who today have just got to survive, leaving it up still to Team Saxo Bank to set the pace making on the front. Wiggins does not look ruffled at all. Over his shoulder there is Christian van der Velde, looking exceptionally calm and collected. Behind him is Andreas Claude, and behind him you can see the tricolour jersey of the champion of Luxembourg, Andy Schleck. And behind him it's Alberto Contador, and then Lance Armstrong.
Nicky Sorensen setting the pace here. A brilliant turn by the young man. He's got one stage win already. The USA flags on the far side. Spilak will be unaware, but he'll know what's going on behind him now. He's continuing to blaze his lonely trail. He's about 26 seconds in front of what is coming up the mountain now. Fabian Cancellara is being picked up. He will see his Saxo Bank teammates now. Will he pick up the pace, or has he got nothing left in those legs?
Don't underestimate Fabian Cancellara. Looking over his shoulder, he will, even if it's only 200 metres or 300 metres, he will find something, Phil, in his legs to push it that little bit harder for his team, just to try and set something up for his man in that group, Andy Schleck.
Now a little move here away from the cross here as we start. This is Hejerdal going back to the pack now. He's going to see some of his teammates have got themselves in the right position, in particular Bradley Wiggins. Lance Armstrong on the left there has climbed steadily through, and this is becoming a selection. There's about 12 riders here. Andy Schleck is one of them.
Well, I tell you what, Cancellara found something very special there, Phil, looking over his shoulder. He was trying to rip it up. He slowed down to wait for Sorensen to come back to his wheel. They have literally made the first selection of the bike race. Jürgen Vandenbroek is hoping to survive at 6.5 kilometres to go. Mikel Astrolosa is there, but the train behind is right on them. Well,
this is looking to me now as though the throws of the domestiques and then the leaders are going to have to take over. George Hincapie is here. He's being unshipped a little bit now, so he's in second place overall and beginning to fade away.
Well, Race Radio, Phil, is also saying that Carlos Sastre is in difficulty at the back of this group.
Well, we need pictures of that, but the cameras can't really get. Look at the face on Cancellara on the left of our picture. This is his final help for the team before he drops off the back. Fourth rider down is the man he wants to help, because that is Andy Schleck. Schleck is a very, very gifted climber. Christian van der Velde right there as well.
Van der Velde right up there in the front of this, but moving up into fourth position there is Andy Schleck, and Cancellara is all over the front end of this. He will push himself until he can't go anymore in an an attempt to asphyxiate all of the other climbers. I think, Phil, we're just about reaching the point where Fabian Cancellara, in fact, he's still riding them off his wheel.
Well, they were trying to sort themselves out there, and the Astana boys nearly collided, but now Lance Armstrong has moved forward. Contador just dances right in the slipstream of Astana. The yellow jersey is gone. It's goodbye to the maillot jaune now for Nocentini as they start to drop back, and Nocentini riding behind Gomez there of Cervelo. But it looks now it's a big struggle. Now we go back to the front here. This is where the moves are about to come. And Frank is the one that's going to start the first move.
Well, Frank now is trying to set something up for his brother. But Cancellara, he's put it into reverse there, Phil. He dug himself so deep and then all of a sudden went out to the back. Contador straight across to Frank Schleck. Armstrong is still there. Andy Schleck is coming across too, still with Bradley Wiggins.
I don't even saw that, but Contador looked for where Lance Armstrong was there to see what was going on, and Armstrong immediately took it. He's number one. Here's Carlos Sastre. We found him now, and he's finding the pace and the speed they've hit this climb is hurting them. Now, who said the climb was easy?
This is not an easy climb, Phil. There we can see going around the corner Frank Schleck trying to set something up for his brother, but the two brothers from Team Astana here are Alberto Contador and Lance Armstrong. Contador looks so easy. He's looking around at everybody to wait and see if there's going to be an attack, and here's his move.
Well, there's the kick from Alberto Contador. Now Lance will not respond here. It's got to come from somebody like Andy Schleck. Schleck has gone. It's the two great climbers going one-on-one on the climb now. This is the move, and I wonder if this was the plan too. It was started at the top of Arcalise over a week ago. The team didn't like it. He said it wasn't part of the plan, but now I think it is.
Well, I tell you what, that was a savage acceleration. Armstrong now will sit here with Frank Schleck and Bradley Wiggins and see if they've got any firepower to try and nail back that acceleration. Andy Schleck was trying to ride across the gap to the man who has been touted as the best climber in the world, and today, Phil, he is giving us a little bit of a demonstration.
Well, he can do what nobody else can do. He can accelerate, settle down and kick again. Armstrong playing the faithful teammate here as he rides behind with Frank Schleck there and Bradley Wiggins and Christian van der Velde rather. But now what are they going to do? They're waiting to see what pans out now as they continue to ride up towards the summit. Look at the cool hand Luke this guy is. He just sits there and keeps his rhythm, then he kicks again.
Well, Phil, this is at 5 kilometres to go, but this race actually gets a little bit steeper at 3 kilometres to go, and that will go into the terrain there, of course, of Alberto Contador. There is Andreas Kloden coming up. He's setting the tempo now for Armstrong, followed by Frank Schleck. It's Bradley Wiggins there, and I'm not sure whether or not we've got Christian van der Velde coming across. I think we have.
Well, just look at the face here now. Kloden has come up to help Lance Armstrong there with the two riders now on the front. This is the chase by Andy Schleck trying to get on to touch with Alberto Contador. Looking for 149. He's gaining a bit today. Well, the question now being asked by the chase group. Lance Armstrong looking across, Bradley Wiggins on his back wheel, but he's done a terrific ride, there's no doubt about that. Frank Schleck will be happy because his brother's up the road trying to deal with Contador. Bit of a problem at the moment. Christian van der Velde is here, number 51, the next group down the line.
Number 11, Cadel Evans, is in that group as well. As you can see here, Alberto Contador has decided he wants to lay down the foundations of a win number 2 at the Tour de France this afternoon. Schleck is halfway across the gap, but he doesn't look quite as fluid as he did on the climb up to Arcalise. He's at 16 seconds, and I think the gap is probably going to start to stretch. Armstrong at 29, and the yellow jersey at over a minute.
I don't like the look of Andy Schleck, I'll be honest right now. I think this first day, after 2 weeks of riding away from the Pyrenees, may have altered his physique there because he looked very, very uncomfortable. He tried to match the acceleration of Contador, and that's put him into his red zone. He's going to have to come out of that slowly.
Well, I just remember that time that we came to the Tour of Switzerland and Johan Brunel introduced us to this young man, Alberto Contador. Johan Brunel said, I have never seen a bike rider accelerate on a climb like Alberto can. What, not only can he accelerate, but he can accelerate again and again and again. He really is phenomenal, the way that he goes up these mountains with such ease.
Well, look up the road there. He can't even see Contador at the moment, Andy Schleck. And, you know, if these boys settle down into the rhythm, Schleck might be coming back here any minute now. Frank is on the left of our picture. Kloden is setting the pace. Armstrong is there. This is the next group down with Van der Velde on the back here. And Cadel Evans off to the right as well. They've come up. They've latched on to Lance Armstrong. and Bradley Wiggins and Cloden. That's a very select little group now.
Well, the two riders from Liquigas were the ones that we expected to be there. Roman Kreuziger, number 93, and Vincenzo Nibali was in that group. A little bit further back, Arrière de la Course. There you can see the yellow jersey is losing time. He's not losing that much time, but he is losing his yellow jersey here this afternoon.
Maxime Monfort is there for Colombia too, but I'm just wondering where Tony Martin is, the white jersey wearer, because Andy Schleck is gaining time in that competition. But this is the man who's ripping the mountain apart with 4 kilometres to go. Alberto Contador. It gets a little bit steeper as we got towards the top. Van der Velde's in trouble here, just unhitched a little bit. He's looking for more help behind.
Well, he's really struggling. Bear in mind, this man had a nasty crash in the Giro d'Italia, and he's trying to ride himself back. But this man is riding himself back. Number 1, Carlos Sastre, caught out, Phil, by the severity of the start of the climb, using his experience, not panicking, and riding himself back into this race.
So, last year's defending champion at least has got himself into the second best group on the road. But who's going to stop Contador now?
Well, I don't think anybody can stop him because the gap is opening. 23 seconds to Schleck, 42 seconds to Armstrong, a minute 22 to the yellow jersey. Armstrong is riding phenomenally as far as I'm concerned for a man who is at 37 years of age. Alberto Contador, 21 on his back. The man who is trying to win the Tour de France for the second time is now starting to open up the gaps, and that's what's important because he's opening up the gaps on this man who thought that he could dance with him. Team Saxo Bank tried to set it up for Andy Schleck here this afternoon, but it's 22 seconds. Schleck can almost see the Spaniard, but he can't quite catch him.
Andreas Cloden setting the pace here, but this is just a tempo. They don't want to close down on Contador. Lance Armstrong, a big test for him, but he's doing superbly at the moment.
Well, you can see here that these riders from Team Astana are still pretty much in control. They're setting the tempo in this group, and the other guys, Phil, I'd have to say, are very happy just to be passengers. Great comeback by number 1 there, Carlos Sastre. Cadel Evans has never been in difficulty so far. On the far side there, you can see Frank Schleck looking over his shoulders. He set something up for his own teammate. It's 45 seconds from Alberto Contador to the Lance Armstrong group, with caught in the middle, Andy Schleck.
3.3 kilometres to climb, and he's still dancing up the hill here. Alberto Contador being chased at 26 seconds by Schleck, 48 by the Armstrong group, and a minute 28 already now. Back to the group Maillot Jaune. Nocentini from a few seconds in front is going to be over a minute now. This is Bradley Wiggins, and that is a smart piece of acceleration. This man is a different bike rider these days.
Well, Phil, over the last 12 months since the Beijing Olympics, he's slimmed down by 5 kilograms from August to the start of the Giro d'Italia. During the Giro d'Italia, he slimmed down a further 2 kilograms, and that makes him changes him from being a pursuiter to a climber. That was a good acceleration, but you notice how he was covered there immediately by Frank Schleck.
An offer, a bottle offered there to number 11, Cadel Evans, but Cadel Evans, it just doesn't seem to be able to lift his game here. He's in the hot group, but really he should have been where Contador was when he made his move. Sastre too couldn't handle the speed at the bottom of the hill, but he's come into his own now and he's joined this group. There he is, number 1.
Schleck has gone. Frank Schleck has now jumped across. He's trying to get across to his brother there to see whether or not he can assist him close down the gap on Alberto Contador at the front.
Now, is it age at 37 when you can't answer to the accelerations of the younger men? Maybe. But Armstrong still climbing amongst the best bike riders in the world here. And he's settled in and back with Bradley Wiggins on his shoulder. I think Frank Schleck is desperately trying to reach Andy and give him a hand here.
Well, the flags are out for all of the countries in the world over the head here of Alberto Contador, who's now inside of 3 kilometres to go. And if you look at this pedalling action he's got here, Phil, he is not weakening at all. He is opening up the gaps on everybody else in the Tour de France. The second place rider on the road is Andy Schleck here, number 31, the leader of Team Saxo Bank, and it's his own brother trying to get across to him to give him a hand.
Well, he's made the right move. He's opened the gap. Now, can he climb up? We're looking at the man who's won the stage at Alpe d'Huez here, Frank Schleck, if he can just reach. It is completely blowing apart on this climb, and the time is spread right down the mountain. There'll be no seconds at the top now. Lance Armstrong still going to be very high in the overall. Cloden is trying desperately here to keep him in the race, and Martin Brun is getting a bit upset there, the referee, as we watch here the split. And now up front are the Schlecks Schleck's going to get it together and perhaps close down a little bit on Alberto Contador.
Well, so far Contador's got 34 seconds over Andy, and I have a feeling before the top of the climb that the way Andreas Kloden is riding there, they may well pull Frank Schleck back into the fold. He's getting a little bit upset with the crowd here. They are getting very close and maybe annoying him.
They're getting a bit too close now, but he's so annoying. He's trying to hold his rhythm here and concentrate and win the lead in the Tour de France, so they don't want to hear people shouting right down his ear. But you know, it's still a good group, this. There's still a lot of riders. Cadel Evans has now moved to the front to try and lift the pace. It's only just around the corner where Frank Schleck is, still trying to reach his brother Andy.
Well, they are trying to get together to try and stop the onslaught of the Astana team train here this afternoon, because this was a well-planned attack. It really falls into the norm of a Johan Bruneel tactic. Go out on the first big mountain and smack them home. This is Frank Schleck, just on the wheel of Frank Schleck. It's one of the riders from Liquigas, and Bradley Wiggins has got across there.
2 kilometres to go as the camera should pan down to find Alberto Contador about to go underneath it. 2 small kilometres. He hasn't slowed down at all. He is gaining time with every pedal rev here. Andy Schleck tried to reach him and he hasn't quite done it, and Frank has not reached Andy Schleck yet either. Massive, massive crowd. This climb is 6 kilometres shorter than the climb of Alpe d'Huez, but the crowds on it are absolutely equal to the Alpe at the moment.
Well, this is the group that has come across from the Lance Armstrong group, because now Bradley Wiggins is hooked up there with Frank Schleck, and of course in there as well is Nibali. So they've gone away from the Lance Armstrong group at 2 kilometres to go. Andy Schleck is still looking for more than half a minute.
Well, this is the champion of Luxembourg here, chasing the time trial champion of Spain, and is riding alone, the face here of Bradley Wiggins. But he's confirmed today that he is in this race to Paris, and he is in the race for a high finish. He is one of the best riders in this league group, and he's very, very strong indeed. He's now up with Frank Schleck and Nibali, and these boys are still trying to hunt down Andy, and a counter-attack, and Sastra's gone. The start may have killed him, Paul, but he's settled back in now.
Well, it was too violent, the start of the climb for him, and it probably was a little bit too violent for Lance Armstrong at 37 years of age, and of course 3.5 years away from the top end of the sport. But Armstrong mustn't panic in a situation like this. This is only the first day of massive big days in the Alps. He's got his teammate there, Andreas Kloden, to pace him up towards the summit of this climb, and he can see these riders disappearing from him one by one. Evans there has missed the acceleration of Carlos Sastre. Never underestimate Carlos Sastre. Those were the words that Lance Armstrong said to me, Phil, before the start of this year's Tour de France.
He goes better and better and better in the last week of any Grand Tour. This is only the first of the last week days of the Grand Tour, with a lot more mountains to come, and the finish won't always be at the top of a hill, but it will be today. This man will be out of the saddle when he comes right up to the line today. Rather a nasty kick just before it, but Alberto Contador now is establishing himself as the leader of the Astana team, and boy, when you see him climb like this, who else could there be?
He is phenomenal the way he gets out of the saddle. As soon as he feels that he's slowing down, out of the saddle he gets once again, lifts the pace up, taking it up to maximum speed, and that's what he's been dreaming of, Phil. The Flamme Rouge, 1,000 metres to go, but at around about 300 metres to go, there is an awful kick up towards the finishing line.
There is indeed, and it's going to hurt, but it won't hurt this man now. It might serve to knock a second off, but I doubt it. Somehow there's a nice close-up of his name on the back of his number 21. Lance Armstrong has been looked after here on the latter part of the climb by Andreas Kloden, and I would say the Astana team are racing into the team lead tonight. The team is decided on the times of the first 3 riders of the team. So Contador, Armstrong and Kloden, that would the way it will be.
Contador now inside of the last of 600 or 700 metres. Chasing him on the road is one man in second position, Andy Schleck, number 31, the leader of Team Saxo Bank. They tried to set it up for this man, but they could do nothing when Alberto Contador came out of that pack. It was an amazing acceleration for this man, but he's kept it going all of the time. He's continued to build his advantage over everybody else.
Well, this is Andy Schleck. He's riding in second place now. About 44 seconds he's lost so far to Contador. Then we have Frank Schleck, Bradley Wiggins and Vincenzo Nibali. They are chasing a little bit further back, but this hill has hit so hard by these boys. It was so difficult to get a wheel. They've hit it so fast, and Sastre took a while to get into the swing of it, but he's doing it now.
Well, Sastre is going to climb up in the overall standings. Armstrong is defending here this afternoon. He hasn't really lost all that much. When you look at the riders who he is racing with, Phil, and bear in mind he was 3.5 years away from the top end of the sport, he's doing fairly admirably.
He'll still be right up in the overall, because to Lance Armstrong to Contador is still only just over 1 minute, 1 minute and 20 seconds. So Armstrong can still climb with the best riders in the world. This was a plan I think Astana had. They wouldn't reveal it to us, but we know it now. And really, at the end of the day, if the race came to the bottom together, they had to attack. Look at the crowd here watching the best climber in the world come home. This is a terrific sight for Alberto Contador. He had his wings clipped in the Pyrenees, but he's found them again in the Alps for sure.
Well, he certainly has, and this, I think, is definitely a Johan Bruneel tactic. They waited for this. He wouldn't reveal anything this morning, the Belgian tactician. This is what they were thinking about. They were going to come out on this big mountain stage and lay down the law, and this is what they have certainly done.
And that's the corner which really hurts. It doesn't look like it, but he's got up on it now. He's sat back in the saddle. I've got it, he says. Here we go. There's the pistol shot. Alberto Contador's over the line. He's the next maillot jaune of the Tour de France. The time gaps will start now. Here comes Andy Schleck, the champion of Luxembourg. He's establishing a podium finish in Paris for sure. It may not be first place after what we've seen today.
He will also be looking at the white jersey for the best young rider as well, because he's ridden away from Tony Martin on the slopes of this climb up here to Verbier, but he got a bit of a shock when Alberto Contador came out of the pack. This is a very brutal finish here, this last 200-300 meters. He'll be looking at that corner, hoping to reach this last little bit of flat to the finish line.
And look at the clock counting away as well. He's going to come up to the line about 42, 43 seconds afterwards. So he actually closed a little bit on Contador. Here's the race now. Nibali has just eased himself away. Wiggins could finish off a terrific performance today as Nibali, that's why Liquigas worked. He's racing up, and Sastre is going to go for the 4th place as Nibali goes in at 62 seconds. Sastre comes in. No, it's not. It's Frank Schleck, followed by Wiggins, followed by Sastre.
And here is
now
Lance
comes home.
Well, this is a great defending ride by Lance Armstrong here. Just bear in mind how old this man is. He's 37 years of age. He's staring 38 at the end of this year in September, with his teammate just in front of him. Cadel Evans comes across the line there to lose himself 1:25. Andreas Kloden is next in at 1:28. And there is Armstrong. Not a bad performance, Lance.
No, not a bad performance at all. Lance Armstrong gave his best there.
A spectacular scenery so far of a tour that hasn't exactly been short of it. Now, the road has started to rise pretty shortly after the off this morning. Mark Cavendish started to slip back to find his way into the day's autobus to chug to the finish inside the time limit. A large break of 21 riders got away, and in there both the main contenders for the King of the Mountains competition. Franco Pellizotti in the polka dot jersey and Egoy Martinez, who started the day 8 points behind him in second place, both got away off the front of that group, along with Vladimir Karpets. Karpets being the best placed man in the break overall, 5 minutes 56 behind the race leader. Martinez couldn't stand the pace for long though, and as we pick up commentary towards the top of the Col du Grand Saint-Bernard, Karpets and Pellizotti are out front on their own. The remains of the breakaway is about 1 minute 25 behind them, with the group containing the yellow jersey and all the big names at 2 minutes.
5 kilometres to go to the summit now.
Well, there's a lot of people who have charged over this pass throughout history, including, of course, the great Hannibal. But in fact, in 1800, the recently appointed consul of the French Republic, Napoleon Bonaparte himself, decided he wanted to go over this mountain because he wanted to go and attack the Austrians. He went over the top of this climb with 60,000 men, 50 pieces of artillery, and 3,500 horses. Now, the other generals said, it certainly would have been. The other generals in the army said to him, what are you taking the artillery over there for? It's going to be a little bit difficult. His response was, the possible can be achieved by everyone. I want to achieve the impossible.
Oh, what a great character he was. He'd been all over France in his time. Now we're looking here at the two leaders. They attacked very early on. Pellizotti sensing that the break of 21, which he'd formed at the approach to the climb, was not working well together, so he decided to go it alone. Karpic joined him, Igor Martinez joined him. Igor's back in the chase group at the moment, which is still a 16 riders strong, although I'm not seeing any pictures of it at the moment. And then the peloton are up behind. 20 points at the top today, and they're remembering that the double points on the last climb is worth more now than the all category. There's 30 at stake on the top of the little St. Bernard.
Well, there are any points available for Franco Pellizotti. He will take them and put them into his back pocket. But behind, Egoy Martinez has got to try and get himself third place to keep himself in contact in this competition, which I think is going to go on again and again, and may not be decided until we get to the summit of the Mont Ventoux on Saturday. And everybody's talking about the Mont Ventoux on Saturday as being a major showdown. We've got a major showdown today on the final climb of the day, the Petit Saint-Bernard, but tomorrow is also an exceptional day with a number of climbs that the riders have to go over.
Well, that's the second group on the road as far as I can see. They've just gone through 5 kilometres, and that is more than 25 riders strong. In fact, our computer just sent apologies. It's now 27 riders strong at 1:40.
Sergio Paulinho is being brought up to the front now to do the pacemaking. Now you see the tactics that Team Astana have adopted this afternoon. What they did, they used their first 2 men for as long as possible, and that was Gregory Rast and Dmitry Muravyev. They set the tempo on the early part of the race, which was the flatter part before we started the climb. They then kept the tempo going over the first 5 or 10 kilometers of ascension, and once their job had been done, they swung off and they've slipped to the back. In fact, they've both been left behind. They will try and catch up on the descent. Now it's turned over to phase number 2, and phase number 2 has always been Sergio Paulinho, followed by Popovic, followed by Haimar Zubeldia. I've noticed this afternoon, though, that they seem to be resting Andreas Kloden. You can see Lance Armstrong in the black helmet there, sitting in 4th position. I have a feeling they're keeping Andreas Kloden back so that he is the man to respond to any of the other attacks that might come. In the main field, heart rates are creeping up. Chris Anker Sorensen's heart rate has gone up to 174 now. He is almost right up there in the red zone. Wattage 363 watts, and if you're talking about sustaining that amount of wattage for a period of 15 to 20 minutes, that's a serious amount of work. And the speed, not very much at 8.5 miles an hour.
Still a lot faster than we could climb up this mountain, that's for sure. But they've got it nice and steady here. This is the second group on the road. It's now up to 27 riders. But the men who've joined from the back, again, are no threat to the situation overall at the moment. All a long way down. They've lost many minutes over the last 2 weeks of racing. They'll be looking for the stage win, or more importantly, to survive the stage today. Armstrong has moved up there, and he's always protecting the yellow jersey of Alberto Contador. There's a little bit of move there from the right. It looks like a Cervelo rider has just shot out the pack.
Once again, concerned about the fact that the numbers in this group are starting to swell, and realizing they're slowing down the pace, and he obviously doesn't want to get caught. Team Cervelo have got that tactical desire, I think, today to have riders off the front end of the main field before they get to the final climb of the day. Because Carlos Sastre was, I've never seen him get angry, but he got angry in a press conference yesterday, Phil, by saying that he was upset in the lack of respect that he feels he's been given by the press as the defending champion. And after all, he's still, although he's lost time in the early few days of this race, he is always a threat. And he's actually thrown down the gauntlet now to say he's going to win the climb when it goes up to the summit of Mont Ventoux.
Oh, that'll be worth watching then, just for that. Well, these are the 2 leaders here. Spanish flag flying there, as we now see Vladimir Karpic. He's a Russian, and with him is the Italian Pellizotti. Here's the, well, there was the Astana. There's Johan van Summeren not feeling too good. Also, Pozzato is dropping to the back as well. And the rider here from Euskaltel Euskadi is Juan Jose Oroz. He's another youngster in the Tour and getting his first grip of the mountains.
Also Karate slipping back as well, and getting an idea now that we're getting into the steeper part of the climb at 5.5 kilometers to go to the summit. That's when it kicks up to be in excess of 10% as we go right up this road, which this part of the climb here, by the way, Phil, is only open for 6 months of the year. The rest of the year is completely covered with snow.
Arashido's just gone off the back as well. A lot of riders are unhitching now. Look at the length of the line. In fact, this group is steadily being pulled back into the race by Astana. They've taken over a minute off the 2 guys in front. That's a Cervelo rider who's gone back. I'm not too sure which one it was. They had a few up front. But I think it might be Vladimir Gustov, who's gone back into the pack there. They are coming back with a very fast tempo here. They're repairing all of the damage on this climb, that's for sure.
Been a lot of questions about Kenny van Hummel, who is the last place rider in the overall classification. Well, he got himself through the stage the other day to the summit of the climb in Verbier. He's 3 hours and 2 minutes behind Alberto Contador in the overall classification. Now, if you work that out with the average speed of the race so far, that actually corresponds to 123 kilometres behind the Maillot Jaune. Now, this is a big surprise to me because Tony Martin is going backwards here now. He was a man I expected to ride well and excel in the mountains. But I've always said, Phil, the day after a rest day, sometimes the body reacts in a very strange manner.
Well, he's been riding so well with that white jersey on his shoulders. We lost it on the climb to Verbier, and it went over to Andy Schleck. He's a young boy to ride so hard in these big mountains. It might be a wise move just to lose a little bit of ground.
Well, I noticed Mick Rogers had gone back there with him, and I think that was to try and escort him and encourage him not to give up. It's always good to have somebody with you to pace you and talk you through these bad moments, because Tony Martin could have a very bad time on this first climb of the day and then recover for the final climb of the day.
Well, there's another example. Carlos Barredo's going off. He's a climber on the quick-step team. He's also the high tempo. It's all about the high tempo. They can't. Climbers like to set their own tempo, and they're being dictated to here by Astana, who are looking as a team extremely strong. It's having effect across the board. They're only a minute 54 back now of the leaders.
Now, they've closed down a couple of minutes quite easily in the last 3 or 4 kilometres. I also noticed for the first time Andreas Kloden just peeping around there. He's keeping himself undercover this afternoon. He, I think, is the dark horse for Team Astana. Let's bear in mind that he's high up in the overall standings. He could be the big threat. He's 4th at the start of the day. He's looking for 2 minutes 26 seconds. However, if he slips into a move, that will put a lot of pressure on everybody else.
Well, the camera's gone back to the second group on the road here, which was 22 riders strong. I think riders are being dropped from this group as well, but they're not going to be very far in front of the peloton now, who are going to try and pull this race back together as they go over the top of the climb.
And you see that once again gives the credit to Johan Bruneel. Don't panic, don't chase all of these breaks away. Just keep a good solid tempo going on the flat part of the course, and we can turn it up just a little tweak once we start to get to 4 or 5 kilometres to go, and then bring the race back into a sensible group.
Looking at this group, no problems here. I saw Andy Schleck back there, and David Miller is here as well. He's looking after Brad Wiggins, so they're all riding good tempo. This is life at the back with Thor Hushoft in the green jersey. He is now losing ground. Ryder Hejerdal, the Canadian rider, is also in this group, slipping away a little bit. So too is Linus Gerdeman. I didn't really expect to see him back there.
No, he's obviously not going too well in the mountains. He was expecting to ride well on the slopes of Verbier, which is why Team Milram came to the front on the run in towards the finish, because what he wanted to do was put in a fine performance, but it wasn't going to be as far as he was concerned.
Oh, look at the pain on the face of this young man, Igor Anton.
Well, we're now pretty much in the terrain of the riders in the orange jerseys. Euskaltel Euskadi has always been a team for the big mountains, and that must be one of the Alpine Bears or gorillas, silverbacks. That's the group starting to splinter. That's Sandy Cassar on the front, the Frenchman, who is currently probably the second best rider in the leading group off the front end of the main field, looking to try and get himself a little bit closer to the top end of the leaderboard. He decided he's not too happy with that. He wants to close down the gap before we get to the summit. You can just spot there, first time I've seen him for a while, Nicholas Roach in the green and white jersey. Also sliding backwards there, number 74, George Hincapie. Maybe using his experience, not putting himself too much into the red zone, or is he going back to see if he can help Tony Martin?
The face of George Hincapie here, and he too now is in a little bit of bother as he starts to slide away off the back. The peloton keeping a very fast riding tempo now. 1 minute 52 is the gap between the main field and the leaders. Maxime Montfort, who rode extremely well on Verbier, but this is a different type of climb, was alongside George there.
Stewie O'Grady from Team Saxo Bank. He's actually done very well to hang on to the back end of this main field, Phil, and he should probably manage to make it back up on the descent.
Vanotti and Willems there are two Liquigas riders. Willems a little bit surprised. He's quite a good climber. He also is not like the rhythm. He's the world champion. Alessandro Ballan, he's falling back as well.
Big pressure. This is another one of Team Silence Lotto riders, Greg Van Avermaet. I'm actually impressed with him because he's normally a very good sprinter, so he's stayed in contact for quite a long time.
The catch here.
Fabian Cancellara coming backwards. He's having a quick chat with the lads. Do you need me to do any work, or shall I just get myself over the summit? The other rider in the black jersey there, Jose Ivan Gutierrez, former time trial champion of Spain.
Well, this has been a merciless tempo by Astana, but no panic. They've allowed all of these riders to sprint away, gain up to 3 minutes, kept their tempo going. These boys have got tired, and the Astana boys are still doing the same speed they were 15 miles ago, or 24 kilometres ago. They're just coming up to the summit. About 1 3/4 kilometres to climb for the peloton and the leaders.
Well, still Vladimir Karpet's doing a great job of work. When you get to this point of the climb, you can actually look over the side and look down to see the position of the main field, and he's probably done that a couple of times just to try and guesstimate the difference between himself and the main field behind. And you can look down on these bends, these hairpin bends here, Phil, and you can actually get a very good idea of how the race is unfolding.
Well, they're about to go around that far corner on the left of our picture here, as they built this road quite literally on the side of the mountain, the Col de Grand Saint Bernard. And, well, if Pellizotti thought he was going to be in the lead to the next one, he might be wrong, because the tempo riding has closed it right down, and the peloton are not far behind what is now 18 riders in the chase, which is where we are at present here.
Well, this is the next group on the road.
Peter Velits on front.
And he's a guy that a lot of people are talking about as being a possible threat to the white jersey competition too, because he's actually climbing very well. Jaroslav Popovic, Phil, is a changed man, I think, since he left the side of Cadel Evans. He never could find his form on that Team Silence Lotto, but now that he's back with Armstrong, Contador, Johan Bruneel, he's the man that he was when he was riding alongside Lance Armstrong, and the man who won the white jersey competition for the best young rider in the Tour.
Just 15 left in that chase group now. The peloton are going to pan right. There they are. So they're pulling back that chase group. They won't survive over the top. They'll be back in the pack. It'll be more or less the whole peloton chasing the two leaders on the road, and the gap will be less than 2 minutes.
Moncoutier going backwards as well. Now that's a bit of a surprise, because this was one of the days that Moncoutier of France had decided he was going to look and see if he could get into one of these long raids, but he wasn't able to stay alongside Franco Pellizotti or Vladimir Karpets when they flew the coupe.
Might be a case of using his head here though, because he knew the peloton were coming back, so he's dropped back maybe voluntarily in the hope they pick up everybody, and he'll try again on the last col of the day. Just two big cols today. You're either going up or you're going down.
David Miller of Garmin Slipstream, and of course of Scotland, riding well at the front end of the peloton, looking after the interests of Bradley Wiggins. He will be extremely motivated by the position of Bradley Wiggins in the overall standings, and Wiggins, the more he goes through these mountains, the more I think, Phil, he will get confidence that he can go over them on a regular basis, and that is something that will be tested tomorrow with 5 cols on the menu for tomorrow's appetite.
Oh, it is a really difficult day tomorrow, and for that reason these boys are trying to hold it together today, because tomorrow the body might just give out. There's the two leaders way up to the left now as the cameras pull back. Then you'll see the first part of the chase group. That's the gap that exists today on the Col de Grand Saint Bernard. So once we're down below, it might well all be together through the valley. Not everybody will get back, of course. There's a back bunch now forming behind quite a way down the mountain.
That's the group that all of the sprinters will be in, with Mark Cavendish, Thor Hushoff, all the fast men from the flatlands, and they will get together, group together, with a view of trying to make sure that they can get themselves inside the time limit. Number 31, Andy Schleck. He will be biding his time, waiting for the last part of this race. I'm a bit surprised to see him sitting so far back, though.
So am I, sitting on the wheel of the British rider Charlie Vegarius there.
Bear in mind, I've always said, Phil, the day after a rest day, the body reacts in very strange manners, and sometimes if you've been and done too many press calls, you've not looked after yourself properly on the rest day, you end up paying for it. I don't think that's the case here. There's another move here. This is Mikel Astrolosa going off the front end of the pack, and I'm surprised to see him attacking.
Well, he must be doing it to try and snatch some points, but there's an awful lot of riders. He's trying to reach this group, which is just literally around the corner, with a huge effort here, Astrolosa. The leaders, by the way, at 900 metres from the summit. We can only go where our cameras take us, but that's where they are positioned just now, 2 of them. And this is Astrolosa. We are looking here now at a spot of trouble here for the champion, Fabian Cancellara. He was in the breakaway. He's fallen right through the bunch. The only good news for Fabian is the top is about 1.5 kilometres away on the Col de Grand Saint-Bernard, so he should be okay, and he will get back on the descent. The leaders, Paul, are about, there we are, we're back with them now, about 700 metres to climb.
And you can see the majority of the work has been done by Vladimir Karpets. That's 1 kilometre to go for the rest of the group, and that group at one stage was almost 25 riders. They've slimmed down a bit over the final few kilometres. I think, Phil, we may even see a general regrouping on the descent, because that main field will go down this descent extremely fast.
Almost at the top of the climb, Norwegian flags, the Breton flag of France on the right there. As they go up through the crowd here, the USA flag is flying on the horizon as well. And that's going to fly for Bradley Wiggins, I suppose, an American team, and he's sitting third overall in the Tour de France, and so far he hasn't made any mistakes. He's still comfortably around the whereabouts of Alberto Contador and Lance Armstrong, the two riders ahead of him overall. These boys coming up to the top of this huge climb today. But by the time they get up there, they've done only 40 kilometres of the 160.
Well, there was a new flag that we haven't seen in the recent past on the Tour de France, Phil, the Japanese flag at the side of the road, because, of course, the two Japanese riders in this race are still firmly in this race. In fact, Beppu Fumiyuka finished in 57th place on the climb up to Verbier the other day.
He's still in the peloton, but Arishiro, he's been dropped from the main peloton just now. He went back about 5 kilometres from the summit. He should get back with a bit of luck on the way down. We're plunging into Italy now, and we'll stay in there for a while, and we'll climb out of it on the Col de Petit Saint-Bernard, which I think is a harder climb than this one, but this one's got the higher rating category. There's the face of Jens Voigt here as he pushes on.
Well, Jens Voigt is trying to drag this group over the top just in front of the main field, but I can tell you, Jens, the main field led by Astana are probably only 45 seconds behind this group. But Jens, he's got in the back of his mind that little plan. He wants to be off the front of the race when we get to the final climb of the day, the Petit Saint-Bernard, because they are going to try something, I think, Team Saxo Bank with Frank and Andy Schleck.
Well, I don't think Karpets will spoil the party at the top here, because he's not challenging for the King of the Mountains. I think he'll allow maximum points of 20 to go to Pelazzotti, who looks a little bit tired just now as he kicks up for the final metres.
Well, I'm not surprised at all as they come up to the summit, but I think Pelazzotti will get himself maximum points just around the corner there. He's just looking back to see if there's going to be any reaction. There's no reaction for Karpets, so another 20 points in the bag for this man, Franco Pelazzotti.
Yes, that was honourable by Karpets there. He may as well let this climb it, and it was Pelazzotti's attack that got him away from the group. So job well done so far for Franco Pelazzotti today, and Karpets, you need to get together now. Here comes Jens Voigt trying to keep them away from the Armstrong-Contador group in the hope that they will pull away on the descent. Pieric Fedrigo is also here, the rider that won the other day down in Tarbes. The other day, it was 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah, seems like a long time ago. A lot of teams starting to get interested in that Frenchman, including Team Saxo Bank, because they're impressed by the way that he's got the power to go into these breakaways on numerous occasions. From the front to the back for David Moncoutier, there, number 121. He was in that breakaway a little while back. He was dropped from the breakaway, which is a surprise to me, and now he's being picked up by the main field.
He also picked up Maxime Bouet then as well. He's also dropped from this lead group and back into the pack. Voigt is heading up for the sprint.
Watch out for the sprint here as well, because Pieric Fedrigo, Phil, is also well up in the overall classifications in the King of the Mountains, and as we speak, there he goes.
To be expected as he goes for third place over the top of the climb. Nice piece of riding that by Fedrigo. He's having a very good tour.
Third place there was a rider from Euskaltel Euskadi. I wonder if it was Egoy Martinez, but there are 3 riders in there.
But just ahead of Fedrigo.
Yeah, there are 3 riders in there, in fact, but Fedrigo did get himself the third place.
That's third place for Fedrigo, and Egoy Martinez, I'm sure, went to try and pick up best of the rest there, because he's just about holding Pelazzotti in his sights. Look at this, the Astana army stomping through the Alps here. On the far right of our picture there is also Bradley Wiggins, riding very, very well with a teammate, and I think it's probably Van der Velde alongside him. Davy Miller's also in the group, so he's with the Grand Saint-Bernard. The Astana boys are still in control as they now begin the descent.
Well, if you're talking about the St. Bernard, Le Saint-Bernard, look at all those St. Bernards out there. They've come out to rescue anybody who's been left behind in the Tour de France here this afternoon. That Euskadi rider who went across the line in about 4th or 5th place was not the second place rider in the competition. In fact, it was Mikel Astrolosa was the rider picking up 5th place there. And I didn't actually catch on race radio whether or not Igor Martinez, Phil, got any points at all.
Well, we're still waiting for the computer to tell us the final result of the climb. It won't really matter. The King of the Mountains got it. And Pellizotti, 20 points in the bank for him. Now we're on the long, dizzy descent here. Very rapid descent as well off this. As we look at the beautiful St. Bernard dogs here. They permanently are here. And there are 5 of them in that little group there. 4 years and 2 years of age they are. That's the spread. And I think between the whole family of St. Bernard dogs that live up here permanently, they had, I think it was 80 puppies last year.
Wow.
So that's pretty good. Must be the air.
Must be the good summer air here as we go over the top of the climb here. We're now, we just very quickly, Phil, went through the border post, and we're now on Italian soil for the next 80 kilometres or 50 miles of racing.
No passport required today as we now begin to head down towards Italy. A dizzy descent, this one, Paul. It's a super fast descent. And I wonder if Jens Voigt will try to keep the boys away, encourage them to race rather than wait for the peloton to arrive behind them.
Well, just popping up, Phil, I've just got a quick look at the points at the top of the Col de Saint-Bernard there, and in fact there were no points at all to the second place rider in the King of the Mountains classification, Martinez. It was his teammate who got across there in 7th place, Mikel Astrolosa. So he actually rode across the gap from the main field to join that group. Federico got himself 16 points, so that will do him a lot of good in that race. And the young Frenchman has said that he is going to have a crack at trying to win the King of the Mountains classification. And to do that, he's going to have to go head-to-head with the man who is in 2nd place there, Franco Pellizotti.
Oh, with the leaders on the way down. 2 minutes 7. They just pulled away a little bit as they came over the top of the Col de Grand Saint-Bernard. We're down on the Italian soil now as you race down to Sarre. That's where there'll be a special sprint. You've got to be careful on this descent, though. Nice and dry and the weather conditions are good. That's a bonus.
Good surface, though, for them on this descent, and it's not that dangerous descent, not as technical as the descent they will face from the summit of the Petit Saint-Bernard. That final descent of the day down here into Bourg Saint-Maurice is really very tricky, very technical, and I would have to say quite dangerous. And hopefully the weather will remain as clear as it is currently on the finishing line, giving everybody a safe journey down the mountain.
And we want to see such wonderful pictures as well. 2:14 and going up.
Well, the 2 leaders there, they will take pretty much as many risks as they can. There won't be any risks in the main field here because the tactic will be, I think, for Team Astana to slow off the pace now. They're not concerned about any of the riders in that leading group. What they're concerned about is giving the chance of a couple of their riders from the back to make a descent and return into the main field so they can use them over the flat part of this course, linking these 2 mountains from Switzerland through Italy and into France. Big international stage for the Tour de France this afternoon. You get a chance to see just how tricky these descents are. You're going downhill now probably for up to 40 minutes, and despite the fact that you think it's easy going downhill, these men are going downhill at full tilt, and you're braking, accelerating, steering the bike around the corners. And on some of these long descents you can actually end up starting to get a little bit of cramp in the arms. One thing you also have to be very careful of as well on a big long descent like this is these tyres that the riders use are actually stuck onto the rims. The rim is a flat rim, and they're not like car tyres which are put on with a rib. These tyres are solid tyres. They're stitched up on the underneath, then stuck to the rim. Now that cement, when you use the brakes a lot on a descent like this, it heats up the rims, and the rim then can start to melt the cement which is holding the tyre in place, and sometimes the tyre tends to roll off, and that's something you've got to be very careful of.
Well, these are the dizzy moments of the world, Paul, as you were a great descender, but you've got to be so tense now and vigilant.
You don't even think about it. You're completely controlled. You're completely accentuated to the movement of your body. You've got to look at the corner before you come into it. You look at the lay of the land. You don't actually look straight in front of you. You look maybe 50 or 100 meters in front, just to see if you can guess how the road is going to unfold in front of you. And another thing you use is you use the motorbikes. The motorbikes that precede you, you can tell by the moment that the guy puts his brake light on, you know it's a corner that you need to back off coming into. If he doesn't touch his brakes, you know you can go around it at full tilt.
Can't afford to make too many mistakes though, but at least this road is guarded. So the leaders went up it the quickest up the col. They did it in 66 minutes today. That's an awful long time to spend climbing, even so. But that's Pelazzotti and Carpets. They set the trend up the mountain today with a climb of 66 minutes. At one stage though, they were pulled back by the Astana team. Up until now, Contador and Lance Armstrong are riding side by side. They appear to be the best of friends today, and the team is doing the work of just keeping an eye on all of the other contenders. So it's gone according to plan so far for Astana today, but they all know that it's the last climb of the day when the gauntlet goes onto the floor.
Certainly it's going to be quite tricky. Just looking here, this looks like Popovic, and he's slowed down a fraction. He's seen that he's opened up the gap. There's no reason at all for Team Astana to go like madmen down this descent. They just want to go down this descent nice and safely, and I think they want to actually back it off a fraction, Phil, to maybe give a chance to riders like Gregory Rast and Muraviev to come back into the main field.
Well, there's Cancellara's got back. He was just unhitched about a kilometre from the summit, so it was a short chase back on. Hasn't quite made it yet, but here he comes. This man who never says die is now coming back onto the field, a champion of Switzerland, and he's a great champion.
Well, there was a poll, Phil, amongst all of the team managers because of the descending being such an important factor on today's stage, to figure out who the team managers in this race thought were the best descenders in the world and in the pack. And they voted first of all for Thor Hushovd, who uses his downhill ability to get himself back into the race on many occasions. Number 2 in their list of favourites was the man we just watched there, Fabian Cancellara.
Well, remember how well he rode in the time trial in the Tour de Suisse, which he won. He took a lot of chances too on the downhill sections. No, he's got a lot of skill. We've seen him in action already on this year's Tour de France in the same boat. Ooh, nice tight fit on the inside.
Well, you saw how he went up through the inside there, coming round Sergei Ivanov, a champion of Russia, going around that corner. The best way to go around these corners is to ride at the front like these guys are here in the first 3 or 4 positions, because you can pretty much trust and rely on the line that the man in front of you is going to take around the corner, whereas if you're in 10th or 15th, it can be dangerous. The two leaders, technical part of the corner. You see how they've gone around there. In fact, Carpet's a little bit over geared there. You might not understand, but you do actually have to change gears a lot on the descent. When you come into a corner like this, you need to drop it down a couple of sprockets, a couple of gears, so that when you come out of the corner, you can accelerate again up to top speed, just as you would if you were driving a race car. You drop it down into 3rd or 4th gear and then accelerate, and then you go up through the gears once again. This is the world champion, Alessandro Ballan. Wouldn't like to be on the back of the motorbike here this afternoon, because the motorbike riders are going down this at around about 80 kilometres an hour. They're having to accelerate sometimes to 120 to stay in front of the riders. And on a number of occasions, Phil, I've gone down technical descents being followed by a motorbike, and the motorbikes are actually touching down in the corner because of the exhaust pipes down at the bottom.
Well, for me, these are the parts I don't like, I'll be honest, as far as the bike race goes, because the riders do take a lot of risks. It's another element of the talent of these great sportsmen, is to be able to go downhill very quickly. And today we've got to be treated to somebody taking so much risk on the last descent of the day, because the reward is first place on the stage. And so there will be some incredible descending in the last half hour of our show today, that's for sure.
Arrière du peloton, this is the back end of the main field, and these are riders who were dropped on the final kilometres of the Col de Grand Saint-Bernard, now taking the risk to get themselves back into the main field.
This rider from Cofidis here has just put a nice warming top on there, because it gets a bit chilly on the way down. 2:32, the leaders have continued to pull away from the Armstrong group. They're not taking any chances in the bunch, quite rightly so. And so they're going to try and build on this. They might go through the bottom with 2 or 3 minutes, maybe over 3 minutes, the advantage.
Well, in the valleys at the moment, Phil, the temperature is warming up to around about 30 degrees Celsius. However, on the summits of these peaks, it's not very much warmer than 14 degrees. That's why these riders look to put themselves a raincoat on, or to take a piece of newspaper from the side of the road from a spectator and put it in the front of their jersey, just to stop the cool wind, the chill factor, cooling them down and promoting possibly a bronchial infection, which is the one thing these riders are really concerned about when they go through these big mountain stages.
Well, they're chasing wheels here. They're having to really ride. This is the last rider to get on at the moment. He's one of the Agri-Toubel riders.
It's Nicolas Vaugondy, the former French national champion. You can just see the red, white, blue bands. Yeah, he won that title on 2 separate occasions, and he hasn't quite got onto the wheel of the rider in front of him. You get an idea here. We're touching speeds here pretty close to 80 kilometres an hour in the straights.
Well, is he dangling on the chase group there? Because he was in that chase group. These are the 2 leaders still up front and working together.
2 minutes and 38 seconds, and they've got themselves set up now for a very long ride in between the 2 peaks. They're just going through the small town of Saint-Rémy. Saint-Rémy is at it's only 58 kilometres of the race covered. They've got a long way down to the bottom. The town of Sarre is where they'll reach the bottom of this descent, and that's in another 20 kilometres. And they'll be averaging on this part of the course probably fairly close to 60 kilometres an hour because of the fact they're on the descent. Through the town of Sarre, they'll then go through the feeding station at Saint-Pierre, through the small town of La Salle, and then the final ascent of